Hey everybody, it is Nick and Mike here at Higher Precision, and today we're going to be teaching you a little bit more in depth about the Bowers MicroGauge. Today we're going to be reviewing the Bowers MicroGauge. It's a 2-point split ball bore gauging system specifically designed for bores of a 1/4 inch and 6 millimeters or below. It's a very high accurate bore gauge with high repeatability, and it's offered in a wide variety of individual ranges as well as large capacity sets.
And going off of that, Nick, you said there are individual ranges in a large capacity set. I would assume this is a large capacity set?
Yep, this is a large capacity set here. So the large capacity sets will include the readout itself. It includes all of the split ball chrome heads that you'll need to cover the intended range. It will include all setting rings that include UCAS certification, an extra screwdriver, a wrench to be able to tighten and loosen the heads, and it also includes a couple of extra batteries there as well.
Okay, great. So this is a really interesting bore gauge setup. What really are some of the features and what kind of sets it apart from other bore gauges?
So the micro gauge is specifically designed, it's a small bore gauge. It's
Okay.
really only designed for sizes of 6 millimeter, a 1/4 inch or below. Most bore gauging companies, they have great 2 and 3 point bore gauges, but a lot of them do stop at 6 millimeter, a 1/4 inch. So that's where the micro gauge is perfect for those applications. It has a 50 millionths resolution on it. If you want to go over to metric, that's a resolution of 1 micron, but in millimeters, they go the extra mile. So it actually has a half micron readout.
Oh, okay.
So it can read out to 0.0005 millimeters, which is pretty impressive.
Yeah.
The gauge is great RS-232 output. You can easily hook a cable into the back of the gauge for any customers that are very interested in sending data to the computer. That can be done very easily by just the push of a button. Repeatability on this gauge is 1 micron or 40 millionths of an inch. And the electronics are very, very easy to operate. It's 2-button electronics on here. So now that we know a little bit about what's included with the micro gauge, let's take a deeper dive into the electronics and kind of learn a little bit more on how to use the bore gauge itself. So let's take a little bit of a deeper dive into the electronics on the micro gauge. To turn the gauge on, you can easily push the set button once. Before we go through on actually how to use the gauge, let's quickly cycle through the electronics to check the different parameters that can be set. By touching the mode button one at a time, you'll cycle through all the different options that can be preset. You can cal, which is the calibrate procedure, which we will review later. The unit can be changed from inch to metric. There are 2 different reference points that can be set. There's a preset channel, which we're going to go in and put in the value of the setting ring prior to using the gauge. There's diameter mode, also known as mid mode on electronic bore gauges, which is key to capture the shortest distance between 2 points. And the resolution can be changed. So when we're in metric, we can switch from 0.01 millimeters to 0.001 millimeters to 0.0005 millimeters. So it has the ability to go out to a half micron here. So the first thing we're going to do is put a preset value into the electronics. Right now we have a spherical split ball chrome head that measures from 3.75 to 4.25 millimeters. And we're going to be using a 3.996 millimeter setting ring. So the first step is to put that preset value into the electronics. By doing that, we're going to tap the mode button until we see PRE for preset, and then tap the set button to get into the preset mode. As soon as I hit PRE and I see that, I'm going to hit the set button once. I'm in the preset mode. You will see a plus sign flashing. Always make sure that there's a plus sign there, not a negative sign. By tapping the mode button one at a time, you will go to the next digit. By tapping the set button, you will increase the digits one at a time. So please take your time, go through your electronics on the micro gauge, and make sure that the setting ring size matches up to what the electronics. As soon as it does, you can hold down the mode button for about 2 seconds, and that's going to get you out of the preset. The next step we have to do is go into diameter, min mode. By doing that, we'll tap the mode button until we see DIA for diameter. Tap that set button once, and you can see the min mode or diameter mode is now on. And you could cycle that on and off. We're going to leave it on, and then tap the mode button once, and we're out of the min mode there. So at this point, I will say, don't pay attention to the numbers on the gauge itself. Anytime you're using an electronic bore gauge, I always tell people not to pay attention to the numeric values until you have gone through the complete calibration procedure. Well, now that we know the electronics is preset correctly with the setting ring size and we're in the mid mode, we can actually now go and sweep our setting ring here. So we're going to actually put the gauge itself inside the setting ring, and we're going to lightly sweep. I just want to check repeatability. Once the gauge is repeating, alright, I have the gauge repeating to 3.365 millimeters, which again, at this point does not mean anything. So the next step and the last step we have to do is calibrate the gauge, and by hitting the mode button once, you'll see cal appear. We can hit the set button, and now our gauge is actually calibrated and set to this exact setting ring. So just a quick repeatability check. We're going to go in here, and if I can insert it, there we go. And this gauge is dead nuts on, 3.996. We're at about 2 microns off. So that wraps up the electronics on the micro gauge. It's very, very easy to use. It does take a little bit of practice to master, so I would recommend spending a little bit of time with the micro gauge and just getting a hand on the electronics and how to insert it into the setting ring, sweep it a little bit. About a half hour of practice and you'll find yourself to be a master with the micro gauge. So that wraps up the review on the Bowers MicroGauge. If you have any specific questions or would like to learn a little bit more about the product, feel free to reach out to us at HigherPrecision.com. And until next time, we'll see you again.